Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years, pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week on the podcast is the start of a new topic for us all to chew upon. What is the future of yoga? So I probably can think of maybe half a dozen other people I know who are thinking about, maybe even obsessing about the future of yoga like I am. Part of why I do this obsessing is because I want things to be better for future generations of yoga teachers and yoga therapists who are coming after me to build a new kind of profession. And recently, an incident happened with the International Association of Yoga Therapists, known from here on out as the IAYT, that caught the attention of myself and several other people within the yoga therapy community. Now, up until now, I really have only sprinkled yoga therapy content into this podcast, in spite of the fact that I have been a practicing yoga therapist for over 10 years with a private practice myself. Something that I took pride in at the beginning of my yoga therapy journey was that we were somehow different, more skilled, more educated, more, dare I say, professional than other yoga teachers. But I'm going to be honest, that attitude was 100% just me being an asshole. I've worked hard to let go of the judgment bias that I had about who was good enough, who was doing the real yoga in our industry, who had the correct intentions, and who was the most quote-unquote yogic, and so much more. It's very clearly the same energy that we as a collective bring to discussions of if goat yoga is actually real yoga. Because you can think any kind of way you want to about that particular topic, but you'll never convince me that the conversation didn't start and doesn't continue to take root in the soil that is judgmental about women earning a living. Sometimes I slip back into my old thinking, and a lot of the times I'm able to rally and remember why I'm really here. I'm here because I think yoga teachers and yoga therapists are doing some of the coolest, most nurturing work out there. And I am here to fight to make it better for all of us. To illustrate why I think this is, let me tell you two stories about my time recently at the Midwest Yoga Conference. The first story is the story of a yoga teacher who does a few chair yoga classes a week in her own community. And she was telling me all about her work when we had our night before the conference mixer. And I have to say, I immediately, and I do mean immediately, fell in love with how much she loves her classes and her students, because that's all of us, isn't it? She spoke with such passion and feeling about her students, how she was always thinking about ways to adapt her classes to their needs, how her eyes truly shone so brightly as she talked about the work she does and the classes she teaches. She also did what I think we all do. She said, "They aren't really big classes, and I'm not doing this full time or anything," when talking about her work. But she also wondered if she could order some yoga magazines, maybe even just 3 or 4, for her students so that they could bring a little yoga home with them after class. See, this is why I love us. We're out there on the streets, so to speak, sharing what we love with our students. This is exactly why I think there has been a lot of discussion about whether we are a vocation or a profession. Vocations are acts of passion, a calling, if you will, and I certainly feel that way about my yoga teaching and my yoga therapy practice. But also, I think we're more than that. The other person from this conference I want to tell you about is Mona Flynn. Mona runs the 501c3, the Yoga Connection, and the work she's doing in her community is just frankly incredible. She's teaching yoga to newcomers, folks who have historically been referenced as refugees in the United States. And not only does Mona run programs that center around these newcomers, she also does research to support that work. She recently presented her work at SIR, the Symposium for Yoga Research that happens every year at Kripalu and is sponsored by that same organization I referenced earlier, the IAYT. Mona and her team are thinking about things very differently than most folks who use the moniker, quote-unquote, inclusion when talking about their work. She is thinking about feeding the kids of her participants. She's thinking about the transportation needs of those families. And she and her team are teaching yoga to folks who sometimes don't have a common language with each other or with the teachers who are teaching. The reason I'm bringing up both of those humans is because this next 10 episodes of the podcast will be dedicated to our organizations. Well, one in particular, the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and the IAYT's recent move to create a designation within their organization that will make it even harder to get work in an industry that's already struggling with the issue, and will also devalue yoga therapists and experienced yoga teachers on the whole. And I want to tell you about it. If you follow me on Facebook, you know that this is where I put a lot of my sort of medium form content about the yoga industry. I've been known to start threads on my Facebook page just asking yoga pros that I'm friends with, of which there are lots, to discuss whatever topic I'm thinking about. Well, a few of my friends and I leveraged Facebook to start the group, The Future of Yoga Therapy, that is now more than 1,000 people strong, to discuss what we want for the future of our alleged profession and what action steps we can do to change our fates going forward. This move was a very direct response to a designation that was put forth earlier in this year by the IAYT. And to catch you up, let me tell you what the IAYT did. They launched a designation they're calling the IAYTQ designation. It is a 300-hour yoga teacher training that is just for licensed healthcare professionals to become more qualified to give people yoga recommendations when they are within the Western healthcare system. Now, you might think this sounds amazing, right? Let me tell you, there are a lot of us, myself included, who disagree strongly with this idea. Let me tell you why. If you practice yoga therapy like I do, oftentimes you get a chunk of your referrals from medical providers. Licensed healthcare professionals have what is called a scope of practice. We do too, as yoga professionals, and I will link to the IAYT and the Yoga Alliance's scopes of practice in the show notes. And these scopes of practice matter. When you're thinking about dentists, for example, they are licensed only to work on teeth and things around your jaw and your mouth and that part of your face. Dentists don't work on your eyeballs. They don't fix your shoulders. They also don't give you health advice that they don't have previous certifications, experience, and training in. They cannot recommend a stretch to you while practicing dentistry. Their scope is to be dentists. The same goes for all other licensed healthcare folks. And the fact that yoga will now be even slightly under their scope is less work for us. Because, let's face it, a doctor who might suggest that you quote-unquote try yoga will now be twice as likely to say, do this breath work, and write it as a prescription for their patients. And what we know, based on thousands of years of experience, is yoga is a holistic practice. When we strip it for parts, a breath work here, a meditation there, a move over there, when we both dishonor the practice and we misrepresent what we do as professionals. We don't teach yoga classes or see yoga therapy clients for 14 minutes, offer them one pranayama and one yoga asana and move along. We offer a whole system of yoga, a system that we don't just get from taking 200 or 300 or even 800 hours of training. We also have years of personal practice and dedication behind those hours, years those medical professionals likely don't have and certainly are not required to have. This also begs the comment, do yoga professionals belong in clinical settings? is what we offer people something that can assimilate into a healthcare system in the West. So we organized. We talked amongst ourselves and we figured out what we wanted as yoga professionals and demanded more from our organization, the IAYT. And it went well. Sorta. The IAYT put a temporary stop to the CUE program, although one of those programs is already credentialed by the IAYT, YogaX, out of Stanford, and that program said publicly that our concerns wouldn't affect their program. So we are pushing for more. We are pushing to democratize the International Association of Yoga Therapists Board of Directors, allowing members to have a say in the organization and its initiatives. And we are pushing to kill the CUE. We're asking for transparency, and so far, we haven't gotten too much. Thus, this podcast series. I'm asking some of the legends of this organizing and of this industry what they think about all of this, and I can't wait for you to listen to what they have to say. Up first is my partner in yoga Facebook group crime, Amy Wheeler. She and I are the admins of the Future of Yoga Therapy group. I love her so dearly, and she talks about all the things next week on the podcast. So stay tuned and let me know what you think. This is going to be some serious water cooler business, my friends. And if you want to join us within the conversation online, head to the Facebook group and look up the Future of Yoga Therapy. Now, I will catch you next time on break, my friends. Make sure you stay hydrated and safe until then.